G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, and how much facial hair is too much? Just curious. Welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the A-hole? Now if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good content. Thank you. Posted by user Possible Throwaway 80k. Titled, Am I the A-hole for telling my ex's daughter that I have my own family? This sounds really messed up, but please hear me out. I have, 34 female, lived with my ex-boyfriend, 36 male, for about 3 years. We weren't dating when I moved in. We started out as roommates, and after about a year, we started dating. He had a daughter from a previous relationship who would visit before we started dating, who was 13 at the time. She's now 16. She'd be over to visit quite often, and we included her when we could when she was here. We developed a pretty good relationship, but her mum was still heavily involved in her life, and I never saw myself as a stepmom to her. We broke up at the beginning of December 2019. We just aren't a good fit for each other amongst other things. We decided to keep the rental agreement as it worked for both of us, and due to restrictions in 2020. I started seeing my current fiancé, 34 male, in April of last year, and have now begun the steps of moving in with him as I'm expecting in the next 4 months. Ex's daughter still visits and often asks to hang out or to come to the new apartment when I move out officially. I've tried to be as accommodating as possible and explained that her father and I are no longer together and that we probably won't be seeing each other often, if even at all. Things came to a head last week when she tried to hand off a box of her items that she wanted me to take to the new apartment, so she has some things of her own when she came to spend the night. Which, we never agreed on this. She also asked if she could help name her new sister when she finally arrived, and I was extremely uncomfortable after the whole thing. I decided to have a talk with her and my ex, and told them that this had to stop. She asked why she couldn't be included, and I told her that I wasn't her mum, and that I was starting a family of my own, and that she already had a mum to look forward to. X said that I took on a motherly title in her life for 2 years, and that I was wrong to try and shut her out after the breakup. She left after the conversation, and has reached out after the fact to ask if there's any way she can still be in my life. I've been ignoring the messages, and focusing on moving the last of my things to the new place. My ex told me that I'm a cold beer and that he won't forgive me for hurting her like this. I feel like the a-hole for cutting her out, but I really want to move on with my life. Am I the a-hole here? And extra info, I'm moving nearly across state, / I'm uncomfortable with her considering herself my child and my responsibility when she has 2 parents who are heavily involved in her life. Keeping her involved in my life affects my fiancé as well, who has no interest in her or having any sort of relationship with her. I treated her as I would a friend's child. If she was here, I treated her well and kindly, but I was never mum. I don't hate her. She's not a bad kid, I just have my own stuff going on, and I'd prefer to distance myself as my ex plans on seeing others in the future, and I'm sure me hanging around would be uncomfortable for any new partner he has. Unfortunately, she grew very much attached to you in the time that you spent with that girl. That's not your fault particularly, since you treated her more like a partner's child rather than a child of your own. I want to say for wanting to move on with your life and not having attachments to your ex and his own child, you're not an a-hole, obviously, you're not an a-hole for wanting that. But surely, you realize this child is vulnerable and has so much attachment to you that letting her down as easily as possible would be the right thing to do. But you chose not to do that. You did start off well with that, however. When she would come over and visit, you said you won't be seeing her father again. But when she brought that box of items over, you turned up the heat on her. I don't think she should have been included in that conversation between you, her, and your ex. Having a one-on-one and being kinder to her would have made you not the a-hole in my opinion, but you didn't do that. I feel like your ex is also to blame for not helping her accept that you're no longer in his or her life, and then blaming you for trying to shut her out when that should have been an expectation. An expectation in the sense that he should have expected that you're moving on from her and you didn't want to see her anymore. And that's perfectly reasonable. So my vote is everyone sucks here. Now in the comments, Rolling Katamari says, not the a-hole. Your ex is the a-hole here for not shutting this down from the beginning. You've explained and explained, but this girl just wasn't getting it. The fact she's still texting you means she still doesn't get it. I feel very sad for her, and I think you do as well, but she's not your responsibility. Her parents need to sit her down and explain. You never were her mother or stepmother. You have your own life with your own fiancé, with your own child beginning now. At one point, you have to let go of anything to do with your ex and his life. It's a low blow of him saying he'll never forgive you. I'm glad he's out of your life. This, I could understand if it was a recent breakup, but it was over a year ago, and she's already told the girl that she was no longer seeing her father, so she shouldn't expect a relationship afterwards. The fact that the father is playing along with this, like OP is in the wrong, says everything I need to know about him. OP isn't wrong, she's just moving on. Not to mention she only dated the girl's father for 2 years. It's not like she helped raise her from the crib. It is sad the relationship has to end, but OP has set her boundaries in line. After that, it's on the father to take care of his daughter so OP can focus on her priorities. I think her father, or both her parents, need to talk to her and leave OP out of it. At 16, you are old enough to understand how breakups work, and that OP just isn't a parent or guardian for this girl. I can understand where you're coming from. It's a shame you couldn't be kinder. Let me ask you, would you be okay with someone treating your unborn child down the road the way you treated her? Soft, you're the a-hole. I think you should have talked to your ex and made it clear that it wasn't going to happen and given him a choice, to steer her away from you, or then you would sit down and tell her. Yeah, this. I feel really bad for the girl. Not OP's fault, but still kinda cold? Not being direct though could give the girl false hope and lead her on. Sort of just deflecting disappointment until later. It's harsh, but OP is trying to be honest, and it sounds like she already tried telling the girl indirectly, and her dad just encouraged the daughter to have certain expectations. Being direct and being kind aren't mutually exclusive. It might have been easier to handle the situation with grace if the girl's father had decided to actually, parent? Seriously though, not excusing the 16-year-old's behavior, but yeah, most teens do push boundaries, and I can see any average teenager become overexcited and think of baby names and get caught up in the, I'm gonna be a big sister. But why is dad not doing anything about it? She's 16, and it's normal to get ahead of yourself, but it's not that difficult to reel a 16-year-old back in place. Like, I know that you formed a bond with OP in the past few years, but unfortunately, we're not together anymore. And that means that even your relationship is going to be adversely affected. Apologies for the length, but there's 2 edits to read after all of this. Final edit for now. I spoke to ex's daughter this morning over the phone. I explained that people come and go, and that this is just one of those situations. I wished her well, and told her she's free to call and text every once in a while, and she was still unhappy. My fiancé told me to leave it and move on, which I'm beginning to think is best. And final edit part 2. I'm leaving for my new house tomorrow, and she tried to call ex's daughter to apologize. She still wanted all or nothing from me. She wanted me to see her as my daughter, which I really couldn't do. I wished her well once again, and I hope she can heal with time. I accept I'm somewhat of an a-hole, but I'm ready to move on. I won't be looking at this thread anymore. A lot of you are sick for wishing death on my baby and fiancé. Grow the hell up. Our next post is by user GF Eggs Throwaway, titled, Am I the a-hole for not allowing my girlfriend to send her food back for a second time? So I, 28 male, work the graveyard shift as a corrections officer in a prison. I've been dating my girlfriend, 26 female, for just under a year now. About once a week or so, some of my coworkers and I like to stop at a local diner to get a bite to eat on the way home. They are very accommodating to us COs, as well as our brother cops, and other people who work the third shift at an area factory, as we give them a lot of business. They happily make burgers, sandwiches, nachos, etc. first thing in the morning for us, which we are all very appreciative of since it's the evening time to us. So the other day, I felt like stopping after work. None of my buddies wanted to go, so I texted my girlfriend to see if she wanted me to treat her to breakfast before work. She said that she did, and so we met at the diner. We both ordered the eggs, hash browns, bacon, toast combo. She ordered her eggs halfway between over easy and over medium, and her bacon chewy, not crispy but not limp. When the food came, she decided that her eggs were too close to medium. She told the server that she wanted them mostly easy, but just barely starting to set on the outside so that there are no runny whites. The server took her food back. I was slightly embarrassed because her food was just fine and was what she asked for from what I could see, but I didn't say anything. When the food came the second time, she decided that her eggs were still overdone, even though they looked less done than her first batch. The server offered to bring her food back, but I interjected. No, the food's fine, they did a good job. She will eat it. Long story short, when we left the restaurant, we got into a huge fight. She had to work, so we didn't have much of a chance to discuss it, but when she came over later, she laid into me about how I had treated her like a child and said that I had no right to decide for her whether or not her order was right. She then accused me of caring more about the server than her and implied that I wanted to have an affair with her, which is crazy since she's at least 40 and I'm pretty sure married with kids. I shot back that she was being way too demanding, that it was embarrassing since I was a regular there, that they did a perfectly good job with her food, and it wasn't as if she'd asked for over easy and then gave her scrambled, that it wasn't fair for the restaurant to lose money over her for being so picky, etc. The way I see it, if you're going to ask someone else to cook your food, you have to give them at least a little leeway. But I can kind of understand what she meant when she said that I had treated her like a child. Am I the a-hole? I'm gonna go with not the a-hole here. She shouldn't be so demanding with her eggs at a diner of all places. They tried to make the eggs to her request, but you'd be back and forth all night wasting countless eggs just to make her happy if you allowed it to continue. I do think your diner with a relationship in this instance was more important than keeping your girlfriend happy. So yes, you went about it a little bluntly, but you had to save face somehow. I would be just as embarrassed if I were you in that situation, so I can't really blame you for your actions. My vote is not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Bonnie Bluest says, not the a-hole, and if she's that picky about her eggs, she shouldn't order them. It's very annoying to restaurant staff. Not the a-hole, I agree. I like my omelets a certain way, and I can't find anywhere that makes it that way. I don't order omelets unless at my hometown diner. She's expecting too much from a vague description of what she wants. Years ago, while working as a server, I had a lady order a chocolate shake and send it back because it had too much chocolate and she's allergic to it. She then demanded I make her another chocolate shake with only a little chocolate in it. She sent that back too. I'm gonna go against the grain here and say a soft everyone sucks here. Here's why. Dude, I was embarrassed for you. What the hell is not crispy but not limp bacon? I totally get why you were uncomfortable with her demands. I was frustrated for the poor server and the cook. So she gets to be an a-hole in this situation, albeit not a huge one because she clearly has very particular feelings about her food. Maybe she needs to recalibrate her expectations of this sort of establishment, or find a better way to communicate what she expects. Which brings me to you. I'm going to give you a soft a-hole too, because you did patronize her. Instead of cutting her off and overruling her, you should have just been honest. You could have said something like, babe, please, I'm a regular here and I really like these people. I feel like you're being too demanding and I'm embarrassed. I'm worried about it being awkward next time I visit. You know, something along those lines. Instead, You spoke over her and embarrassed her, which was a lose-lose situation. It's a little worrying that she went to the affair scenario. She sounds very anxious. Maybe there's something else on her mind? All in all, OP, this is hopefully just a learning experience for you both, and you enjoy many happy breakfasts together. I think your alternative response sounds more reasonable when read, but he would still be cutting her off. She still would have been embarrassed and she still would have been angry. His girlfriend was being rude, overly demanding, and a general pain in the ass. I think OP did fine by trying to end this interaction quickly and decisively. His girlfriend was being entirely unreasonable in her requests and was using the customer service dynamic to flex on the restaurant staff. She knew what she was doing and felt very comfortable doing it. OP had no intention of being associated with her bullcrap, and instead of projecting tacit support by remaining silent, he chose to take action. He could have chosen to say something closer to your more measured alternative, but in the moment, he did what he had to in order to support the server and restaurant and to curtail his girlfriend's behavior. And I think it's important to point out that the more measured alternative was likely to devolve into a back and forth between OP and his girlfriend while dragging the faultless server along for the ride. Instead, he provided the server with the opportunity to disengage from the situation and to move on to her other tables. At this point, OP was free to explain his position in a more nuanced manner while saving the server from the awkwardness of having to witness the conversation. To be clear, I think your approach is perfectly legitimate, empathetic, and well-reasoned, but his approach had its advantages too. I think it's also a mouthful to come up with, and then say all of that out loud in the moment where you're communicating and ordering stuff from a waiter. Like, it's kind of awkward to have that whole big exchange while the waitstaff is standing there waiting for the two of you to resolve this issue. Posted by user BugsRabbit1, titled, "Am I the a-hole for selling the car I was going to give my daughter to help pay for my daughter-in-law's fertility treatment?" So my eldest son is 37 and married to my daughter-in-law, who is also 37. 3 months ago, they both came over and told my wife and I that they had done 2 rounds of IVF, but unfortunately neither were successful, and they needed some more money so they could secure another round of IVF with an egg donor this time. Obviously, my wife and I are glad to offer help, and fortunately had some money we could give. However, given the short notice, the total was still short, which brought me to the decision to sell my old Boxster since I didn't use it anymore and have another car. I managed to sell it to an old friend and had more than enough for my daughter-in-law's fertility treatment. For those interested, it was thankfully a success. They're both excited and the pregnancy has been going well. The problem is that my youngest daughter, who is 19, found out that I sold the Porsche in order to help and was extremely upset with me. Didn't understand why until she told me that I'd apparently promised her when she was 14 that the Porsche would be hers after she got her degree. She's never mentioned this before and I don't recall it happening, but I probably did, so I apologized and promised to just buy her another car or even another Boxster. However, she's still not happy with me and told me to just forget it. Even if I remembered, the time sensitivity of my son and daughter-in-law's situation would have taken preference, because my daughter still has a few years until then, and I'd be able to buy another car for her. Am I the a-hole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I like to be a man of my word, and I promised my daughter this car and reneged, even without my knowledge, so I understand her frustration. However, in light of the circumstances at the time and my willingness to still keep my end of the bargain, makes me feel like she's being unreasonable. Well, I feel like this is a tough situation. If you truly are a man of your word, you shouldn't have sold the car because your youngest daughter became attached to it over time. Unfortunately, you did do the wrong thing in this situation, even if it helped get your other child the fertility treatment they needed. This seems like it's something that should have been brought up more often between you and your daughter, and I struggle to accept the fact that it was never mentioned again until just now. That doesn't seem like a real thing to me. Maybe you're just in denial, because surely you would have heard her mentioning it at least a few times in these last 5 years. I don't know. My vote for this is you're the a-hole regardless. Now in the comments, Amid the Primal Thing says, you're the a-hole. It seems that your younger daughter had an attachment to both 1, the promise you made her, and 2, the vehicle itself. To find out that the promise you made her wasn't even worth you remembering must have been an emotional blow, on top of losing a car that had some sort of inherent value to her. I also find it worrisome that you say she's never mentioned this before, and I don't recall it happening, but I probably did. This indicates to me that you have a pattern of doing this. You have a pattern of promising things to her, whether they're physical items or physical presents, and then forget to follow through on things often enough that you yourself say that you probably in fact did it this time too. Your younger daughter is not somehow less than your older son and daughter-in-law, which is what your actions are telling her right now, and which is what you are literally saying when you say that your daughter-in-law's situation takes preference. I get the feeling that because of the age difference between yourself, your kids, and your kids with one another, there have been some historic imbalances like this which have led to your daughter feeling written off, hence her telling you to forget it. She's close to giving up on you, I think. Is that something you're really willing to risk? If I were you, I'd buy the car back and give it to her before you lose her forever due to your blatant disregard and disproportionate favoritism. Exactly. He has grandbaby fever and has tunnel vision, thus creating a GC in the process. His self-awareness is amazing. Quixotic Logophile says, you're the a-hole. It's very commendable that you helped your son and daughter-in-law, but you're completely dismissing your daughter's feelings. You made a promise and forgot about it, while she got sentimentally attached to the idea. You broke your promise and you can't fix it by just getting another one. A different Porsche would not be the same as the one that her dad had as she was growing up. It's not just a car to her, it's a piece of you that you promised her that she can now never have. You should have at least sat down and talked to her about it before selling it. And even if he were to get it back, it would be tainted with the memory that the dad didn't remember the promise he made, didn't remember the times they spent together in that car, and a constant pressure point of her feelings being dismissed, disregarded, and overlooked. Frankly, I'm surprised, OP, at how this was never brought up in discussion with your daughter at all until after you sold it. You're the a-hole, OP. And our next post is by user Queen Toxic, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law that I'm not having kids, even though I still plan on it? So my boyfriend, 26 male, and I, 24 female, have been dating for 2.5 years, and recently moved in with his mum due to financial problems with the pandemic. It's been less than a year of us with her, and we're moving out at the beginning of May. Sunday morning, I was catching up on sleep since I didn't sleep very well during the week. My mother-in-law was slamming cabinets and slamming doors at 9 a.m, and my boyfriend asked if she could be quieter since I don't get much sleep during the week and use the weekend to catch up on it. She then went off about how she doesn't see how him and I could ever be parents because I sleep in. I sleep in until 10:30 on the weekends because I get maybe 4 hours of sleep at night during the week, and that she's worried about us ever having kids. This isn't the first time she's criticized my parenting. She's also made it very clear she's worried I'm going to put chicken McNuggets in a baby food maker and feed that to my kids because I like to get McDonald's once every week or two. I wish I was over-exaggerating on that, but those were her exact words. Keep in mind, him and I both work full-time jobs right now, and don't own our own house, and we don't plan on having a family until we buy our own house and get married, which we've told her plenty of times. I was thinking of telling her that my boyfriend and I are just never going to have children since we're so incompetent, even though we originally planned on it years from now. She has an older son who at this point is never going to have kids and an estranged daughter. That leaves her son to be the only one who will give her the grandkids she's wanted. I'd figure telling her that we're not having kids would at least get her to stop complaining about my parenting ability when she has no idea how I'd actually parent. Am I the a-hole? And edit, a lot of people have been asking, yes, we pay her rent. Yes, we cook and clean, as well as run errands for her when she needs it. We also buy our own groceries. The next place we're moving into, we're also paying rent. She doesn't normally slam cabinets and doors at 9 AM, so maybe she was just in an awful mood that day. She had offered us lower rent than the marketplace because my significant other had just lost his job and was starting a new company himself. Him and I both work full-time. So you're saying you're still planning on having children eventually, but her only son that can give her grandkids will not be giving her grandkids? I can understand she's a pain to live with and she's said some outrageous things to you. People can be much crazier once you actually have to live with them, but you're really only going to send her mixed messages and lie to her for no good reason if you tell her you're not having kids, even though you still plan on it? Like, if that's the way you want to get her off your back for your potential parenting ability, then go ahead, I guess, but for sure there are better ways to go about this than to lie to her about the kids. I understand anxiety and insomnia is keeping you up during the week, and yes, she definitely should respect that. She's definitely an a-hole for pushing those boundaries, because it was an unnecessary thing for her to do. So I'm voting everyone sucks here. Now in the comments, OKLK says, everyone sucks here, or will suck if you go down that path. Retaliating to her complaints in the way you suggest is just going to kick off a big argument about how you perceive she perceives you as a future parent. It doesn't help anyone. The adult thing to do is to sit down and have a calm, rational discussion about how you can all live harmoniously together in her house. Remember, you are a guest in her house. She has welcomed you in, and there will need to be adjustments made by all of you. She's probably never had to worry about how loudly she does things in her own home until now. So go easy. Focus on the real issue here. How you live together. Do not make escalation your go-to tactic when drama is brewing, unless you want to be miserable at home until you can get a place of your own. I agree. Why poke the bear? I just wouldn't tell her anything. And as soon as OP moves out, go super low contact. Just grey rock her just no mother-in-law self. One of the most effective tactics I've found for dealing with other people's volatility is keeping your head down and leaving the room when they start on their nonsense, and don't match their energy if they start getting escalated. Grey rocking works. Not the a-hole. I would tell her that you agree with what she's saying, and because of that, you and your boyfriend have decided that you shouldn't have children. Tell her she has convinced you that you and your boyfriend would not be good parents. This is absolutely what I'd do in OP's position. Trying to argue or defend your stance or anything else wouldn't get anywhere. Mother-in-law sounds like she's just about as judgy as they come, and getting into a debate about parenting techniques of non-existent children is a quick trip to madness. So yep, next time she gets on a roll, just calmly nod and agree and thank her for her wise observations, which allowed them to be able to avoid making such bad decisions as to having kids. Then say nothing more. Oh, and not the a-hole. For those saying she would be in the wrong because OP is a guest in the house, okay, yeah, she is a guest, but just as there is guest etiquette, there is host etiquette too. And there's just no excuse for being a basically negative and unpleasant person. Everyone sucks here. Your mother-in-law more, but lying to her wouldn't be the right way to handle this, and saying, we're never going to have children since we're so incompetent, just sounds petty and passive-aggressive. Ask your significant other to speak to his mother about this, and try not to intensify the drama between now and May. So, what do you guys think about this one? Do you think that my everyone sucks here judgment was unfair? I kind of feel like it was a little bit unfair, but I guess the way that I reasoned it was a bit stupid, even though I feel like saying no, I'm not going to have kids is a stupid thing to do. I guess I want to know what you guys think of it down in the comments below. I'm really stupid with my opinions sometimes, I understand that. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Friendly reminder that I'm now posting daily on my second channel, Markee 2. If you want to laugh at memes with me, link is down in the description below. On phone, you just click that little arrow underneath the video. I also want to say thank you to all my channel members and Patreon subscribers. Your names are currently floating down the screen here, and I love to see all of you guys. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate it. If you see yourself on screen, I want you to give yourself a big pat on the back for being amazing as always, and thank you for supporting me again. I do hope that you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever it is you're up to. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.